Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive. Today we're going deep on something that might sound a little dry at first.
Okay.
But trust me, this is a big one. We're talking about inventory write-offs
Yeah.
and adjustments specifically for beverage distributors.
Right.
And we're going to look at how a company called BDC is helping distributors turn what's usually a pain point.
Mm-hmm.
You know, those discrepancies that eat into profits
Yeah.
into a serious advantage.
Interesting.
So when you're looking at the books and you see these unexplained write-offs or there are huge differences when you're counting inventory, it's often a sign that something's not quite right deeper down in the operation.
Yeah. And it's fascinating because we've got some sources here that lay out some pretty eye-opening stats on this stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So what are some of the most common root causes that BDC runs into when they start working with a distributor?
Well, I think a big one, and this might not be a surprise to folks in the industry,
Right.
is warehouse layouts.
Okay.
Think about a warehouse that's just kind of a mess, Sure. Products are all over the place.
Yeah.
The pick paths are like trying to solve a maze.
Oh, yeah. I've been in some warehouses like that.
And nobody really has a solid grasp on what's where.
Right.
That kind of setup is practically begging for mislabeling, misplacement, and then ultimately write-offs.
Yeah, it just makes sense.
Then you've got the human side of things, too.
Okay.
Lack of accountability for who's doing what,
Mm-hmm.
processes for driver check-in and product handling that aren't consistent, and sometimes just not enough training on how to use the inventory management software properly.
So it's not like BDC just comes in and says, all right, everybody use your software better.
No.
It sounds like they're taking a much broader approach.
Absolutely, much more holistic.
Okay.
They've got this three-pronged strategy that tackles the processes and the technology all together.
I like it.
So on the process side, for example, they might completely overhaul a warehouse layout.
Really?
Yeah, streamline those pick paths and put in what's called location-based inventory systems.
Okay, now location-based inventory. What is that?
So it's basically like giving every single item in the warehouse its own specific address.
Okay.
Instead of just saying, oh, product X is somewhere on aisle 5.
Right.
Its product X is at location A512.
Ah, I see.
That level of precision makes picking and packing so much faster and more accurate,
Right.
which means way less room for those costly errors.
So you're bringing order to the chaos.
Exactly.
And what about the technology part of this? How does software fit into BDC's approach?
Well, they work closely with distributors to make sure they're getting the most out of the inventory management systems they already have.
Okay.
So this could mean customizing the software, setting up automatic alerts for when stock is running low, or really just focusing on training staff on how to input data and track inventory movement correctly.
So again, it's not just about having the right tools, it's about knowing how to use them.
Exactly.
And then there's that people element that you mentioned before.
Right.
BDC really seems to stress driver accountability. So what does that actually look like in practice?
Well, they set up very clear best practices for everything a driver does.
Okay.
From checking in to handling write-offs to repacking stuff that's been damaged.
Okay.
This might mean using handheld scanners to verify loads, documenting any discrepancies they find, and sticking to a strict protocol for reporting anything that's lost or damaged.
So they have a procedure for everything.
Right. It's all about consistency and transparency.
I like it.
Yeah.
And speaking of results, the sources we have here have some pretty impressive client success stories.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Let's get into some specifics.
Okay, so one client was able to reduce their write-offs by a whopping $45,000
Wow.
in just 90 days.
That's incredible.
Another one saw a reduction of $13,176.36.
Wow, they're tracking those pennies.
Yeah, they are.
That's impressive.
In a single month after BDC came in and implemented these changes.
That's a huge difference.
Yeah, and it's not always just about saving money, although that's obviously a major benefit.
Sure.
One client we looked at managed to cut down their inventory write-offs by 10,980 cases.
Wow.
Which translated to a savings of $142,740 year to date.
All right, so these are serious numbers.
They are.
And it really highlights just how big of an impact getting inventory management right can have.
Absolutely.
Now, beyond just the numbers, what really jumps out at you about BDC's approach here?
I think it's the way they connect the dots between the processes and the technology. They get that these things are all intertwined.
Right.
You can't just fix one without thinking about how it affects the others.
Uh-huh.
And by bringing all three into alignment, They create a system that's efficient,
Yeah.
accurate, and ultimately way more profitable for their clients.
And that's what it's all about in the end, right?
Yeah.
So it makes you wonder if these principles can have such a big impact on something like inventory management. What other parts of a business could benefit from this kind of holistic thinking? What inefficiencies are we all putting up with in our own work that we could get rid of if we took a similar approach?
That's a good question.
It's something to think about.
Yeah, it is.
So that's it for today's deep dive. Thanks for joining us. And be sure to tune in next time for more insightful explorations.